What happened to the body of Queen Jane Seymour after she unexpectedly died following the birth of Prince Edward? On the 12th of October 1537, Jane Seymour finally gave birth to Henry VIII's long-awaited son, Prince Edward. The labour had been long and difficult, but the Queen seemed to be recovering. But things quickly changed and poor Jane became very ill indeed, most likely from an infection following the birth. She rapidly declined and eventually died on the 24th of October. Henry VIII was absolutely devastated by the death of his third queen, and her death was very unexpected. She was only 29 and had been considered a very healthy young woman. Jane had died at Hampton Court Palace, and so Henry VIII withdrew from Hampton Court and went to Windsor Castle. By the 1st of November, Henry decided that Jane would be buried at St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. And he also decided that the 12th of November would be the date of her funeral. Before Jane's body left Hampton Court Palace, her entrails and heart were removed from her body and buried in the Chapel Royal at Hampton Court Palace. Her embalmed body was then dressed in a robe of gold tissue, and some of her jewels were added, and a crown was put on her head. She then lay in state for a number of days surrounded by burning tapers. A chronicler of the time wrote this. They said, Queen Jane were, with great solemnity, carried from Hampton Court in a chariot covered with black velvet, with a picture of the said queen, richly apparelled like a queen, with a rich crown of gold on her head, lying above on the coffin of the said corpse. She was conveyed to Windsor with great lights of torches, with a great multitude of lords and gentlemen riding all in black gowns and coats, the Lady Mary, the king's daughter, being chief mourner, with a great company of ladies and gentlewomen waiting on her. Lady Mary was followed by 29 mourners, one mourner for each year of Queen Jane's life. And behind the whole procession were 200 poor men, each carrying a torch and wearing the Queen's badge. Once the body arrived at Windsor, it was then carried in by 6 pallbearers into the chapel itself. The body lay in state for a night, with Lady Mary keeping vigil. And then on the 12th of November, the actual funeral ceremony was held within the chapel. The king did not attend, as was tradition, but the queen was buried with full queenly honours. So after the queen's body was lowered into the vault, her officers broke their staffs and put it on top. During the ceremony, the bells in London tolled for a full 6 hours. What I find really interesting is that Henry didn't actually commission a monument or a tomb to commemorate his late queen. And it's actually quite remarkable that there isn't a tomb or a monument to Henry VIII. In fact, he decided 9 years later to be buried next to Jane Seymour, which was a huge mark of respect. And interestingly, the only thing to mark the resting place of Henry VIII and Jane Seymour is this plaque. And this slab was actually only put in the chapel by King William IV, who was the uncle of Queen Victoria.